Welcome to Derry, episode 2. The Thing in the Dark is here, and it establishes one thing, that there are things scarier than Pennywise, scarier than Deadlights teachers. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Digital Charcuterie. My name is James. Thank you so much for stopping by. If you're new to the channel and a fan of Welcome to Derry, hit that subscribe button. I talk about it and discuss it with you all the time right here on the channel. Episode 2 dropped in the wee hours of the morning. I finally had a chance to watch it. Happy Halloween! And what a Halloween treat this was. Before I get started, I gotta say, if you have not seen episode 2 of Welcome to Derry, hit that pause button. Go and watch it. I'll see you in an hour and 5 minutes. This thing was long, but it felt like a breeze. It came and it went so quickly. I got spoilers coming ahead, though, so if you haven't seen it, I really recommend you go check it out, because this was a great second installment. I said on my preview show, I thought this one would be a little bit slower. They tone it down a little bit, and they would establish the characters. Who are we going to follow and their storylines? And it did a lot of that. It kind of toned it down, but not really at all. Right out the gate, we are back in the Capitol Theater and the massacre at hand. And you see it now. Now you see it from the victim's perspective. I was like, thank goodness I get to see it from their perspective. So you see the kids get murdered once again. Lily wakes up traumatized in the middle of the night from this. She's not going to cope with this very well. A lot's going. Then we go into, that takes us into the opening sequence. Now, the opening credits, we finally get opening credits, all the names, and it is a lovely song and lovely, like, little animation still shots coming up. It looks awesome. Easter eggs in there, a lot of Easter eggs in there, to be exact. It starts off with Paul Bunyan, which is the most obvious of all the Easter eggs, but it kind of goes into, I think, the stories that we're going to get out throughout the season. I think we're going to get a lot of these stories are going to play out in live action that you see in there, so we'll talk about that another day. After that, we get right into the story with Hank. And the cops are outside waiting on Hank. They want to nail Hank, but they just can't do it. You get a little report about that. You see a little bit of the racial tension that's going around in town, but there's not enough to get him. He's got an alibi. He's good to go. They don't suspect anything. But we go inside, and Hank and his mom are having an argument that Ronnie, who they think is sleeping, is overhearing. And it's about how they're going to pin this on him, how they're going to pin the massacre, the murdered children, on Hank, and that just can't happen. Ronnie says this can't be the case. Hank assures her everything's going to be fine. We know it's not going to be fine. They're in frickin' Derry. It's not going to be fine at all. And this leads into the Hanlands moving to town. The Hanlands are now in Derry. We meet Charlotte, we meet Will, we meet the telescope that he got from a pawn shop, which of course is from the movies. We've seen it there, and we get to revisit it later in the episode, which I thought was a nice little callback. I like these things, but it's going to play a part. I think it's actually going to play a part because the owner of that shop, something's off there. There's something, it's not Stephen King, there's something off with that owner. But we meet them, we see they establishing their relationship, their family dynamic. We know now that Leroy Hanland acknowledges the injury he got at work. He doesn't tell Charlotte, his wife, exactly what that is, but he says, I got injured at work. We know it's from being jumped beforehand. That is a plot point that plays into this episode full throttle. We also learn that he doesn't really know how to work with his son, how to father his son, right? His son is a brainiac, and he's not. He's a military man, probably a jock. You know, he wanted a baseball his whole life. His son would use a baseball as a paperweight, is the exact quote that Charlotte gives him. And we see the nerdiness, the smartness, the nerdiness, is that fair, in Will throughout this episode. He's always reading. He reads for fun. And then from here, we get into school, and we see the patty cakes, and Marge is accepted with the patty cakes. This is her group of friends. Lily used to be a part of this friends, and they're looking on. They see that Ronnie is back at school, because part of the argument earlier with Ronnie's grandmother and dad was that she has to go back to school. He can't keep her from school, so she's forced to go back to school on Monday. She is in school now, and the patty cake's like, what is she doing here? And then one of them says, I have a crush on a boy. Oh, and they want to know who the boy is because they're teenagers, because the patty cakes are teenage girls. And so they decide to make fun of the boy that she has a crush on, because he was like snotty nose or something in like preschool or whatever. And then Marge does, you can tell Marge, like, at first she has like a nice I thought the acting actually of Marge was pretty solid. She has like a reaction where she's like, oh, that's cute, but she notices that the other patty cakes are all making fun of her, so she chimes in. And if you notice, I don't remember the name of the leader of the patty cakes, but she gets very jealous anytime Marge kind of steps up and oversteps her boundaries and one-ups the leader's jokes. The leader pushes back and says, that's not funny. You shouldn't make fun. And that happens several times in this episode. Marge is just caught, right? She's a teenager. She's caught in the middle. She has her friends, but she also wants to fit in with the cool kids, and that's where she's at. And Ronnie and Lily, they're having a report. Ronnie's like, you got to tell the cops what's going on. They have a meeting in their school at lunch. And during class, Marge approaches Lily and says, hey, you got to, like, you're not going to fit in with the patty cakes anymore if you talk about what you talk about, this crazy stuff. And Lily says, these kids are dead. Our classmates are dead. I don't care about the patty cakes, which leads into another scene where they're at lunch and she decides not to sit with the patty cakes at all. Lily sits aside. Ronnie goes to talk to them. The patty cakes are judging her. Like, why is she sitting with Ronnie? Like, Ronnie's crazy. Lily's crazy. That is just crazy. Marge makes a joke about how they're plotting to kill them next, which I think might be a little bit of foreshadowing. She goes over the top, and when she starts to get really funny, the leader says, whoa, weren't you wearing that sweater yesterday to really knock Marge down and keep her grounded in this whole scenario? In the meeting between Ronnie and Lily, Ronnie is saying, you've got to tell them that it was a monster baby that killed all of our friends, or my dad's going to go to prison. And Lily says, if I tell them it's a monster baby, they're going to send me back to Juniper Hill, and bad things happen at Juniper Hill. And a callback to the opening credit sequence where you see a needle from a doctor at Juniper Hill going into somebody's eye. So bad things are going to happen at Juniper Hill. So I see both sides of the story here, but Lily's got to be Lily. This leads to Ronnie saying that what she's doing is bullshit. A teacher gives her detention. Then we see Will in the hall. Will's just sitting down on the floor, and this little boy, who's this is his age too, but the kids are kids, says, hey, you can't sit there. That seat's taken. By who? By a friend. Oh, and then they have a little conversation. They get to know one another. We see patty cakes walk by. We see Rich is his name. Rich definitely has a crush on Marge, possibly all of them, but definitely Marge for sure. When he snaps out of it, he goes, oh no, we got to run. And a stink bomb gets thrown down the hall. Will runs a little bit too late, runs into his teacher. His teacher says, you're in detention, because this teacher, by the way, earlier in the episode, when he first enters class, he enters class late. And a kid pulls the chair from behind under him, and he falls to the ground. And the teacher says, do you know the concept of time? And he makes a smart-ass reply, like very intelligent reply, to which she did not know how to answer to that. So I think giving him detention gave her a lot of pride, because she reminded me a lot of my high school teachers. Before all of this, we see Charlotte enters the sweet town of Derry, or as I call it, Port Hope. And she's in there. She's looking around. She goes to get some meat for dinner. She has an interaction with the butcher. They have a good little conversation. But outside, she sees a group of boys beating the living crap out of somebody else. And she's like, why is nobody stopping this? And the butcher says, boys will be boys. And she goes, well, that's not a legit thing to say. So she goes outside, stops them from doing so. The kid they're beating up gets up, run away, and the kids just chase after him like nothing's going on. And everyone is just giving Charlotte a dirty look, like she's the one, like she's the weirdo in this situation, like she's the one that has a problem. This is where you start to really get this feeling about Derry, because we haven't had too much interaction with Derry as a whole yet. This is the first time where you see it, where it's kind of a normal town, but everybody's got a little weird vibe about them going on. And Charlotte really encounters that in this, and she mentions it at dinner. And her husband's like, Leroy's like, you gotta just let it go. Like, it is what it is. And she wants to confront the parents of these children, but Will says, that's embarrassing for me. I'm in school with these kids. He says that'll be embarrassing. Leroy kind of agrees. So Charlotte's like, what was the point of that? Will has to be excused. They get excused. They kind of talk about their day, but what goes on and how he can't tell her what is happening. But we know that there's an investigation going on with Leroy and what went down at the end of the first episode, where he got attacked in his room, and how they found the man responsible, but they don't know who the other two attackers are. Later on, Leroy confronts the accused individual of all of this, and he says, look, the gun that was used is this very specific gun that I've seen trained Korean officers not be able to put together right away, and the guy who put together right away in my room put together like it was nothing. And he kind of coerces him into doing it. It proves that he can't do it. He says, you're not the guy. He confronts his officer, and he says, hey, officer, this is not the guy. We have to keep the investigation going. And that's when we learn that he was chosen for a very specific reason. And that reason is that the incident that he was encountered, that he was a part of in Korea, left him damaged in a way that he cannot face fear. He has no fear at all. And that is something that they need. And he says, I know you got to report me, but let me talk to you first to show you what it is. And we learn that the military is going to try to weaponize whatever it is that is underneath Derry. They don't know what it is. They don't have an understanding of what it is. They just know that it is based around fear, that it will make the person themselves basically kill themselves. And they're going to use this to weaponize it so they can win the Cold War, the nuclear war, so that whenever the war starts, they get the first drop on it, and then the game over right there. He kind of agrees. We learn all this through Dick Hallorann, who we see him having a drink with some of his friends. We learn that he's a big deal in the military, and he has some kind of ability that has him sense what's going on. We're still not quite sure what that, I mean, we know what it is, obviously, but we don't know what it is yet in the context of the show, what that is. We know that he can pinpoint certain beacons in the ground, and they're digging, and they haven't been able to find one. And finally, at the end of this episode, they are able to find a Jeep with the human remains in there, and Dick Hallorann saying, "We are close." So that is the military storyline is starting to pick up there. And we're learning that the cops, the government officials, they really need to stick the massacre, the Capitol Theater massacre, on Hank. They want that taken care of right now. The officer in charge says, no, 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 this is America. That's not how it works. He has an alibi. We don't have any evidence. And they say, no, this is Derry. You get him in prison. They take Lily out of school. They interrogate her once again, and they trick her into saying that she couldn't tell for certain that Hank wasn't at the theater that night, which leads them to arrest Hank, which makes Ronnie very upset. Ronnie goes to her house tonight and starts yelling at her, like, what did you do? What did you do? What did you do? And I talked over this on purpose. We're going to get to what's going on, but I want to do the two big beats of this episode side by side. So just before this, she confronts, when she has her confrontation with Ronnie in the cafeteria, she says, it happened again. I saw something. And what she saw was something so wild that I was like, what's going on? We see her in bed, and she starts to get smothered by her covers. And all of a sudden, she is awoken in the womb of her mother. And she squeezes out of there. And then she looks back, and she sees her mom staring at her, saying, you did this to me. So you're starting to understand what happened to her mother, and her, basically, the birth caused the passing of her mother. And her mother all starts pulling her back in with the umbilical cord coming out, and these chomping teeth, like chomping at her. When they open, you see the Deadlights staring right at Ronnie, which tells me that her and all of her friends they're all going to die. But this beast woman thing threatens her father's life, and it is just this gruesome scene that was just like, what in the mother of frick is going on? It was so disgusting, but it was like right on par with it, and that's why I felt like this episode coming out on Halloween was perfection. After that, everything goes on, and then we see Lily, and Lily just had her encounter with the cops, and Ronnie accuses her, and her mom has to work a double shift, so she sends her grocery shopping, and she's in the grocery store saying hi to everybody, and she's going to get her belongings, and she passes the pickles, and all of a sudden you start seeing like shelves being placed behind her, and they start boxing her in, and weird people peeking out, walking behind her. Really creepy. This was a really well done, creepy scene, and it all comes down as she stares at this pickle jar. She's trapped, she's boxed in with pickles, and she looks at the pickle jar, and the face of her father comes out, and her father says, give me a kiss, and she's like, oh my god. She starts freaking out. She picks up the pickles and thrashes it on the ground, just smashes it everywhere. The body of the father just starts to like come out into like an octopus squid dude. He tries to grab her. She's screaming. Pickles are flying everywhere. We see other pickle pieces are coming to life. And then she's awoken by the grocery store clerk. And he says, Lily, what is the matter with you? And then her mother takes her to Juniper Hill, where the attendees there look Pennywise-ish. They had creepy smiles on their face. And it was awesome. What a way to end it, too. The military is close. There's beacons going on. We see the indigenous looking down like you are on our lands doing something. We don't want you here. They're going to unleash the beast that is Pennywise, that is it. And things are going down. And I thought this was a fantastic second episode. Can't wait to see what's going here, because I thought this would be slower and maybe tone down the horror a little bit. But that birthing scene with the mom was just mind-blowing, like just insane, totally grotesque. And then you have Lily and the pickles, was just one of the creepiest things ever, when the bodies were just sticking out, looking at her every direction. Just a fantastic episode. Can't wait to talk about it. Can't wait to see the next episode trailer. Can't wait to break that down, and can't wait to do more theory videos in the days, weeks ahead. Pennywise is on his way. Hope you all have a very happy Halloween. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I really appreciate your time. Hit the like button, subscribe. Till next time, may you be the master of your own universe.